All right, it is 7 o'clock, so I'm going to call to order the regular meeting of the Common Council of the City of Platteville for Tuesday, July 24th, and we'll start with roll call.
Robin Klein.
Here.
Francis.
Here.
Barbara Stockhausen.
Here.
Ken Killian.
Here.
Eileen Nichols.
Here.
Sina Sharp.
Here.
Barbara Doss.
Here.
First item is consideration of the consent calendar. The following items may be approved on a single motion and vote due to the routine nature of previous discussion. Please indicate to the council president if you would prefer a separate discussion and action. Council minutes from the July 10th, 2018 regular meeting, payment of bills, appointments to boards and commissions. I have two this evening. Museum Board, Deborah Rice, and Redevelopment Authority Board, Valerie Stackman. Licenses, temporary Class B to serve fermented malt beverages to the Platteville Regional Chamber for business after hours at Queen Bee Radio on Wednesday, July 25th from 5 until 7 p.m. Also, 1 year and 2 year operator licenses to sell or serve alcohol. Permits, 5K Fun Run Walk for Find Your Storm on Saturday, August 18th, starting at 10 a.m. to benefit the Stomp Out Bully Foundation. Also, a 5K Run 2 Mile Walk for Ben's Hope Suicide Awareness on Saturday, September 22nd, starting at 8 a.m. and going until 2 p.m. And finally, a permit for a street closing at Maria Place. It's 1 block between West Adams and Lewis Street for private wedding on Saturday, August 11th from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and we'll vote.
Klein.
Yes.
Francis.
Yes.
Stockhausen.
Yes.
Killian.
Yes.
Nichols.
Yes.
Sharp.
Yes.
Doss.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, next is citizens' comments, observations, and petitions, if any, and just so that everyone is aware, if you would like to speak this evening, we do have this form, which is on the table as you entered, and we would ask that you fill that out. It indicates you'd like to speak, or register, or speak for informational purposes only. I don't have anything for informational purposes at this point. It all relate, the ones that are here, I think, relate to something we're going to be discussing later. So we'll go on to reports in the packet. Police and Fire Commission, Francis.
Nothing to add?
Water and Sewer Commission, Stockhausen, Sharp, or Killian.
No addition.
Library Board, Klein. Airport Commission, Dawes.
A couple of things. First of all, a big thank you to the city crew for coming out and sealing the cracks in the, doing that, like tar thing in the cracks of the airport runway before the line painting was done. So now the lines are continuous. The other thing is the runway project is nearly complete, and we're scheduling a, I don't know what we're calling it. If it's an open house or a ribbon cutting or a plane landing ceremony or something like that, I don't know, to celebrate this new runway, and that event will take place on Wednesday, September 19th.
Right. Community Safe Routes Committee, Francis.
Nothing to add?
Parks, Forestry, and Recreation Committee, Francis.
Nothing to add.
Zoning Board of Appeals, Dawes.
Nothing.
And Historic Preservation Commission, Killian.
No addition.
All right, then we're going on to the action items. The first item this evening is Resolution 1818, adopting the Grant County Multi-Hazard Mitigation Plan update. I don't know if staff has anything to add to that, or?
We do not.
Okay, the information was in our packet. This is something that, as I understand it, is done periodically, and it's common for municipalities in Grant County to adopt this plan. So is there a motion?
I move to adopt the attached resolution 1818.
I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We'll vote.
Klein.
Yes.
Francis.
Yes.
Stockhausen.
Yes.
Killian.
Yes.
Nichols.
Yes.
Sharp.
Yes.
Doss.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next item is agreement for the disbursement of funds to Friends of Our Gallery.
We had reviewed this item at our last meeting. When the Roundtree Gallery ceased to be a city entity, We had indicated that we would support their efforts to continue as a nonprofit, recognizing the tremendous value that they add to our community, including the possible transfer of the funds that they had accrued and binding trust monies if certain conditions were met. Those conditions included a formal nonprofit status, a governance structure, including officers and operating bylaws. And we believe that the Roundtree Gallery has met the conditions that we had originally outlined. This time in your packet, in addition to the materials previously provided, we do have the transfer agreement that was prepared by our city attorney. And I do think there are representatives from the gallery that would be available to speak if so desired.
We do have at least one person who will speak and the other two if needed. So the first person, Nancy Collins, if you'd like to come up and speak to this. You'll give your name and your address, please.
Hello, my name is Nancy Collins, and I live at 1120 Eastman Street. And I just want to encourage you to understand that by moving the gallery and taking up a space on Main Street, we want to offer art experiences for the community. We are not just looking to offer things for tourists. We're not there to create a tourist spot. And I want to reach out to places such as Southwest Health Center. If they have a grief support group, they're welcome to come and meet with us. We can get out the paints or whatever art activities they would like to do. I know that in May they have a mental health month, and they also do an art contest for that. And I only see brief snippets of advertising for that. So, we could work with them if they would like to sponsor a few open studios. We could have people come and create the art with us, and then we would help them be sure to enter the contest at the right time. So as we're building all of these new apartment buildings and things for people, I want to be sure that we have reasons for people to come here and stay here. And I think that a gallery that will allow people to just drop in for different art experiences would be a very, very good thing for Main Street. We want to keep Main Street vibrant and active. So we're very excited about this opportunity, and I hope you are as well, and you'll support our request. Thank you.
All right, we also have two other people, as I said, who said they would speak if needed, so if council members do have questions, we can go there, but Amanda Hickok and also Dr. Will Lesueur. We also have people who have registered in favor of the request: Rock Riedel, Angie Mitchell, Roger Gottschalk, Marilyn Gottschalk, Katie Schulte, I think that's how you pronounce it, and Mark Engel. So council discussion. Discussion? Any questions?
Here's this group has met the requirements that we asked them to meet.
You should have their money.
Right, then is there a motion?
A motion to approve the things that need the read.
Have it, you want me to make it?
Yeah, say
I move that all the monies in the accounts listed above be transferred to the Friends of our Gallery upon execution of the transfer agreement.
I second that.
We have a motion and a
We
second.
work together.
I can find the spot.
Who will vote?
Klein?
Yes.
Francis?
Yes.
Stockhausen?
Yes.
Killian?
Yes,
Nichols?
Yes,
Sharp?
Yes.
Doss?
Yes.
Motion carries.
all right.
I was trying to find the bag.
Thank you for your work. Next is Guest Wireless Network in Legion Park and the Platteville Family Aquatic Center.
So at our last meeting, we discussed that Pecan, the Platteville Community Area Network, had approved up to $5,000 to install fiber into Legion Park. This would be part of their mission to expand the wireless network here in Platteville. The condition there would be that the city would put up money and allow access to that network. We have a bid from CompuNet to purchase equipment would be $2,869. To do the installation would be $400. for a total of $3,260.50. While doing that project, we also asked about networking at the Platteville Family Aquatic Center. We do have equipment from the Roundtree Gallery that would be usable there, but not usable at Legion Park since it is only indoor equipment. And because of that, we can use that equipment, which would be just the $400 to add it there. Staff is recommending to do both projects for a total of $3,660.50, taking money from the park's impact fee. Again, that impact fee is money that comes in from new residents as new construction occurs in town for new recreational activities and expansion of our recreation program.
Any questions, anyone?
Yeah, was the equipment from Roundtree Hall or
I'm sorry, I said Roundtree Gallery. That was totally Roundtree Hall.
Roundtree Commons.
Roundtree Commons, yeah.
Yeah, Roundtree Commons.
Lots of Roundtrees.
Not Roundtree Gallery. I'm getting our two
Three.
All these Roundtrees
many
get-
Roundtrees confused.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. So
That-
it's
thank you.
Roundtree Commons.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
I make a motion, we allocate $3,660.50 from park impact fees to establish wireless guest networks at both Legion Park and the Platteville Family Aquatic Center.
Second.
Motion and a second, and we'll vote.
Klein,
Yes.
Francis,
Yes.
Stockhausen,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Sharp,
Yes.
Doss.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, we have done exceptionally well. We have all our action items taken care of, and our work session for the ATV and UTV routes in the city of Platteville is to start at 7:30. We thought we should post a time, so we will be taking a short break while we wait to see if people come who want to speak on the question. All right, everyone, it is 7:30, so we are going to start. And again, those of you who just joined us, if you didn't hear my statement before, this is a form that's on the table back there. If you'd like to speak to the ATV, UTV question, please fill one of these out. You don't have to speak. You can just also indicate that you register in favor or against, or you'd like to speak for information purposes. We are going to start this evening with a presentation from our city manager.
And I just wanted to take a few minutes to kind of bring everybody up to speed with respect to this issue.
And I'm
just-
sorry, for those of you in the audience, you do have to turn around and look at the screen is in the back. It's the best we can do.
And actually, the person who has been our lead liaison on this is Chief McKinley. Unfortunately, when we rescheduled this meeting, it conflicted with a vacation that he had previously planned, so I am filling in along with the lieutenant over here. So with that, just a couple of photos indicate to just demonstrate what it is we're talking about here. Just a visual of a ATV, a common UTV. In terms of background, there was a recent change in Wisconsin state statute that permits municipalities to designate ATV and UTV routes on roadways with speed limits of 35 miles per hour or less. City staff was approached by local ATV, UTV enthusiasts who were seeking to establish designated routes here in Platteville. And the proposed routes would provide connectivity in Grant County and ultimately over to Lafayette. After consultation with the council president and president pro tem, which is what we do when things aren't on our work plan, it was decided that this was appropriate for staff to spend some time on because it was, I think, recognized that it was destined to be a topic of community discussion given the activity around us. And so we met with this group and formalized a proposal for consideration by the Common Council. The proposal went before the Common Council for information and discussion originally on May 22nd. At that time, the council requested additional information, that an information session be held for broader input, that residents along the proposed routes be notified of the proposal in open house, a community survey be conducted, additional feedback from similarly situated communities be collected, and then also that feedback be collected from the school district, UWP, Community Safe Route Committee, Parks, Forestry, and Recreation Committee. We did hold the open house, which really turned into more of a forum on June 11th at the high school, and I have to commend everybody that was in attendance. I think a lot of good information was shared, and I thank the enthusiasts for their work on helping with that. We did have over 290 individuals in addition complete the online survey, so I don't know that the audience here tonight is indicative of the community interest. And then we also have researched and compiled a list of frequently asked questions, which we provided on the website. And so in terms of the proposed ordinance, it would allow ATVs and UTVs to operate on identified routes starting at 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. from March 16th to November 30th. The ordinance would require that operators of ATV, UTVs hold a valid driver's license. The operators are required to have liability insurance. The open intoxicants would not be permitted on ATV, UTVs. They would not be allowed on any recreational or bike trails in the city. Passengers would be required to wear seat belts. And the ATV, UTVs would travel in the center of their lane at posted speed limits. Wisconsin State Statute 23.33 governing ATV, UTVs would be adopted to allow the Platteville PD to cite ATV, UTV operators for prohibited offenses. I would note that the two items that are in color here are slightly different from the original proposed ordinance. After further conversation, realized that we had to clarify in our ordinance specifically that a driver's license was required. That had been our intent all along, but we did that. And then the requiring operators to have liability insurance was also an addition from the previous draft. The Common Council can impose additional restrictions beyond the existing state statute requirements or the draft ordinance. If it is something that's specifically identified in the state statute, the council cannot modify that, however. In terms of expectations, ATV, UTV drivers would be generally expected to follow the same driving rules as any automobile or vehicle driver. They would have the same obligation to yield to pedestrians and bicyclists as any other motor vehicle. And also ATV, UTVs would have 2 working headlights, 2 working taillights, both of which would be illuminated while they were using routes within the city. Turn signals are not currently required for ATV, UTVs under state statute or the draft proposed ordinance. In terms of the city staff research, one of our police officers did reach out to a list of communities that were comparable in size to Platteville, and we did look for communities that tended to be located in more rural areas as opposed to suburban communities, and we tried to identify a few communities that would have university or college campuses. Of the communities that we surveyed, 7 of them had designated routes and/or ordinances that addressed ATV, UTVs. When our officer spoke with those communities, the general themes included that they reported some favorable business impact, that traffic along ATV, UTV routes had increased, particularly during the summer months and early fall, that they'd had very few accidents or enforcement issues, and that a period of community education is needed for both the residents and the users of the routes. Chief McKinley also had a conversation with the DNR, and they just noted that this ATV, UTV use is relatively new. The idea that it's expanded now, or there's the option to have it on city streets. And the state statute hasn't necessarily caught up to this broader use yet. So I think it's reasonable to expect that there may be modifications to the state statute moving forward that we would, if it were adopted here, that might need to be adapted in the future, or if it were adopted within the city of Platteville, that we may need to modify our own ordinance based on our experience because of the newness of it. It is also anticipated that our PDA officers would need to attend a 2.5-hour training course to specifically educate them on state statute 23.33 that pertains to ATV, UTV use. Oops. In terms of the additional feedback from some of those other entities, we have it listed here. the Platteville School District didn't really make a formal recommendation, but they wanted to be part of the ongoing discussion. UWP, we did not get a response from. The Parks, Forestry, and Recreation Committee suggested that the council allow for more time for public input and education, and that consider a sunset clause or limited routes to see how it progresses. The Community Safe Routes Committee recommended that more time be allowed for community input and research. And that was the information that I had.
I have a question. If you could go back a couple slides, you said something about headlights.
Yes.
And so in the frequently asked questions, it says UTVs must be equipped with 2 lights, but only one must be working. And then it says the same thing about taillights. Does our ordinance specifically say that both headlights and both taillights must be working?
I would have to go back and check that real fast.
All right, because the FAQs say you have to have 2, but only one has to work. So
I'll check that conflict.
check that.
I
Okay.
have another comment
Yep.
whenever we're ready. So they can go from 6 to 11, right? Is that the?
That's under the ordinance as proposed. I mean, that's
and
your
so
discretion to modify
Is part of
that.
the discussion that we can propose a different timeline?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, well, I say dawn till dusk because not all ATVs have blinkers, and I know you use hand signals, but when it's dark outside, how much can you see this? And I think it's something really important to consider. Is this the time to talk about it, or is this not how Robert saw it?
Kind of after they hear from them.
Sorry.
I have another
wrong.
question on your offense list. So these, how would common moving violations be handled? So failure to have proof of insurance, we're going to have proof of insurance, is that correct?
That would be in our ordinance. So if the council approves an ordinance, our next step would be to work with our attorney to adjust our code as we need to be able to cite for the things that we talk about in our ordinance that wouldn't be covered under chapter 23.33.
Things like operating on non-approved streets, or parking in non-approved places, or operating beyond hours or before hours, or operating during months when it's not allowed. All of those would go on some kind of,
Correct.
okay. And the only reason that these are listed is because these are the ones that are specifically covered.
These were listed because there had been a question about how common moving violations would be handled, and these were the top moving violations that the city cites for.
Any other questions from the council?
Well, as far as the city surveyed, the 9 that responded and gave favorable responses, but do we have any reasons why the others don't have them, or any disfavorable responses from those surveys? Is that a word?
I don't have that data right in front of me. I think there are communities where it simply hasn't been considered yet, and I would guess that's the most common. I do know that Baraboo considered it and chose not to adopt.
And can you go back to that page?
Sure.
I can't recall if any of them were university towns, just out of curiosity.
Menominee.
Did Menominee respond, though? But I think we had that information at a different meeting.
Let's see what slide I'm on here.
How many did respond?
6, I think it was 9 of 15, maybe.
Ashland Center, Ashland.
Their input was from a sergeant who suggested keeping the rules simple to make it easier for the citizens to follow and for the police to enforce. Otherwise, they had seen no issues related to the operation of ATVs or UTVs along the routes or noise complaints.
Which city was that?
That was City of Menominee.
I would note that the routes in the city of Menominee are on the edge of the community.
River Falls, did you get a response from them?
No.
Any other questions? For staff at this time, we can certainly have questions at the end of the comments from the public as well. All right, seeing none, we are inviting the public to speak this evening, as we said, and we've asked you to fill out the green sheet. And so in no particular order, I will call your name if you have asked to speak, and I would like you to come up to the microphone over to my left, give your name and your address, and we do have a maximum of 3 minutes because we want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak. So hopefully that's enough time for everyone. So the first person that I picked up here, and again, I will state the name and whether they registered to speak in favor or against, or for informational purposes only, or if they just registered. So Jerry Burkhardt, like to speak against.
Well, I see that a lot of the things I was gonna bring up have already been brought up on your board.
Jerry, would you just give your name, please? Because,
Pardon?
would you just give your name for our records?
Jerry Burkhardt.
Okay.
And address?
So I won't go into the details.
Jerry,
I was gonna,
What's your address?
Address.
pardon?
Address.
Also your address, please.
475 Roundtree Avenue,
Thank you.
Platteville. I was gonna make reference to this article that was in the Platteville Journal on 6/20/18. I don't know if anybody in the council has seen it, or if they haven't, I'm willing to get a copy and give it to them, or they can go to the library and get it. The thing, he's got many ideas in here that seem to be needing attention, and a lot of them have been brought up on that board there that you showed. In my personal opinion, one that I liked, that I think should be brought up is according to the nonprofit Specialty Vehicle Institution of America, ATV and UTVs are not designed or engineered to be operated on public roads. ATVs are designed and manufactured and sold for off-road use only. This is commonly noted by the clause in their owner's manual and oftentimes by a sticker that is attached to the vehicle. And then it's got permitting on-road use. ATVs, including modified ATV, may be in conflict with manufacturers' intentions for their proper use and would be contrary to the federal safety requirements. And then it says the city needs to carefully examine and can reconsider their liability. I know you brought up their liability there. I don't know if that's liability only on based upon people using them, or if that includes the city. And if you're going to bring the city up, it kind of sounds like maybe this city's going to have to take another look at this. And if it hasn't, then my idea was it should go to this city attorney, and he should take a look at it and give his opinion if it's valid to have those vehicles on the streets or not have them on the streets. There's a lot of other things that's in this article without going through the whole thing for 3 minutes. I suggest, if you haven't read it, to read it. It's got a lot of good stuff on it.
I know that a lot of articles have been sent to the council members, so I believe we've seen that one, but if you want to leave it with our city clerk, she certainly could make copies and make sure that every council member has a copy of it.
All right, I can do that.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. All right. The next one that I picked up was Marilyn Gottschalk, who does not wish to speak, but she would like to register against. I'm sorry, someone did not put their name. They said they would like to speak against, but I don't have a name on the sheet. So if you don't get called to speak, let me know when we're finished. Karen Jensen also would like to speak against or register against.
Karen Jensen, 290 East Furnace Street, Platteville. Initially, when I heard about this ordinance being proposed, I thought my street was on the proposed route because the paper had reported that it was. So I called every council member. Thank you all for your thoughtful responses to my calls. I really appreciated that. I noticed in the slides that there was a comment that the Wisconsin statutes had not yet been adapted to ATV, UTV use on public roads. But that needs to be turned around because ATV, UTVs are not adapted for use on public roads. That there are some serious safety issues, as Jerry brought up. If we are going to accept this proposal, Sina's suggestion of dawn to dusk made good sense, because I was thinking too, if they don't have turn signals, you're not going to see their hand signals after dark, and that's a serious safety issue. I would also like to find out why Baraboo chose not to adopt, and why Stevens Point, which is another university town, didn't respond. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Kopp would like to speak in favor.
I'm Kathy Kopp, 415 North 2nd, and I am here as the Executive Director of the Platteville Regional Chamber. Just to report that the Chamber Board that consists of 16 members unanimously voted to support the adoption of the ordinance. There was considerable discussion. They heard a presentation, and they felt with the input of city staff, with the police department and through Howard's office, and information that they had received from the county, that they wanted to support the adoption of the ordinance. As the tourism entity for the city of Platteville, we have an emphasis on outdoor recreation here in Southwest Wisconsin, and ATV, UTV usage is the fastest growing outdoor sport in the state. And personally, from a perspective of our Welcome Center, we see a number of visitors that come through that are trailering their ATVs, UTVs, and want to stop here, but they're moving on to other places when they find out that there's no access. So we are here in support of the adoption and supporting those businesses that could use an economic boost. Thank you.
Thank you. Sue Winky, like to speak in favor?
Sue Winky, 1879 Stumptown Road. On Saturday, the Snow Busters Snowmobile Club just had a fundraiser, and that was to attempt to start to collect money for signage. So if you would approve this, the signs that have to be initiated in the city are quite expensive, and they have to go through a club. And so right now it seems to be Snow Busters. We had people on Saturday out here that came in with ATVs. We had sanctioned races. And we had a gentleman from Cascade, Iowa that drove specifically to Platteville to actually sign the petition that is in favor, an out-of-town resident. We had a gentleman and family from Hopkinton, Iowa that also came here to Platteville to find out what do you as a city or we as a city have to offer, and they would like to be able to come into this community, stay all night, and they looked at that map and said they could ride on a Saturday all the way to Monroe, come back, stay in the motels, eat in the restaurants, and they could go on to Prairie du Chien. And it's Platteville that is stopping that huge amount for Southwest Wisconsin. And when people have to have their own liability insurance, I know I've spoke to a lot of people, and that was the biggest question that was asked of us. And I'm just asking that you consider bringing more business into the community by approving this route.
Thank you.
Can we ask a point of clarification?
You wanted to ask a question?
Yeah, can I ask, I don't know if you feel most
So-
equipped to answer a question I have.
Hang
but-
on 1 second, yeah. I'm gonna have you come back up to the microphone so everybody can hear it and we can record it.
Sorry, just because you bring up insurance, that's one of my questions, is how often people carry liability insurance on it. Is that going to be
Well,
an exception
these
to the norm?
UTVs are expensive. You know, I don't even know if you can buy a used one for $8,000. They go up to $35,000. Those people are going to have insurance definitely on UTVs. And on the ATVs, they're under almost everyone's homeowner insurances, or they bundle in with their car, truck, boat, snowmobile, ATVs.
Okay, so it's the norm. Most
Yeah.
people have them. Okay. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you. Bob, is it Handy? It's Handias, I'm not sure. Okay, you would like to speak again?
Bob Harding, 730 North Water Street. When they are used correctly and for their intended design purpose, ATV UTVs can be a valuable asset for their owners. I have some concerns I would like to present on the proposed Platteville ATV UTV ordinance. If you've ever had to do a left-hand turn from the Quick Trip on Water Street, you soon realize that due to the traffic, you're going to be there for a while until an open spot occurs. Water Street is one of the proposed routes for the ATV UTV traffic in Platteville. According to the 2010 City and Town of Platteville Smart Growth Comprehensive Plan traffic studies, shows 13,800 cars per day, that's 10 cars per minute, on this section of Water Street. That was in 2010. I'm sure the 2018 traffic count will be much higher. It will get worse, much worse, once this is used as an ATV UTV route. The Cheese Country Trail that ends in Belmont will send riders into Platteville. According to a 2011 UW Platteville Cheese Country Trail study, the month of August, their peak month, showed almost 19,000 ATV UTV riders on this trail. 2/3 of the users were from outside the 3-county area the trail serves, which means they most likely transported their vehicles to the trail site. Where did they park? Water Street at Quick Trip is a 2-lane road with a 3rd lane for turns. According to the Platteville study, a 2-lane road with a turning lane has a maximum capacity of 16,000 vehicles per day. If you add the traffic flow from the Cheese Country Trail and all the other ATV UTV routes coming into the Platteville, this area will become oversaturated with traffic. We will have exceeded the maximum traffic count for this 3-lane road. I live on Water Street. The house I purchased sat for sale for 1 year due to the amount of traffic and the associated noise. The walls of my house are 1 foot thick, yet I can still hear the noise from motorcycles, trucks, cars, and farm equipment. Just pulling out into Water Street from my driveway can be nearly impossible, especially when the high school traffic is released from the roundabout. I am concerned what the additional traffic and noise will do to my property values. I am also concerned about the police and emergency response vehicles getting through this already congested street. I do not want any additional traffic from ATVs and UTVs on Water Street. In 2017, there were 27 deaths from ATV, UTV accidents. Of those 27 deaths, 96% were not wearing a helmet. All 4 of the UTV fatalities were not wearing a seatbelt. Alcohol was involved in 14 of the 27 fatalities. The majority of the fatalities occurred at speeds of 20 to 40 miles an hour. 1 fatality occurred at an estimated speed of 70 miles per hour. Rollovers are the leading cause of the 27 deaths. An amazing 65% of the fatal accidents occurred on roads. Traumatic brain injury is the #1 cause of death in ATV crashes. Riding without a helmet or helmet failure are the leading cause of traumatic brain injury in ATV crashes. My helmet saved my life. It left me with a traumatic brain injury, but it saved my life. I can guarantee from my personal, oftentimes difficult experience, you do not want to acquire a brain injury, especially a traumatic brain injury. You never recover. You can only hope to rebuild with the abilities you're left with. I want all occupants, drivers, and passengers to wear a helmet, and thank you for requiring seatbelts on ATVs. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Austin Polubitsky, I think in favor of current routes. I'm gonna let you explain that. No? Yeah, okay.
Thank you. I'm Austin Polubitsky. I'm a resident of Platteville. I live at 545 Jefferson Street. I have concerns with this whole general process. Despite what others have said or written or thought, I'm one of the few seeking a compromise solution. In fact, I'm one of the 28 in the minority that filled out the survey. I'm not against ATVs or UTVs. In fact, I've got family, friends, clients that own and operate ATVs. I also have friends that would directly benefit from increased traffic. And as a personal small business owner, I appreciate the role that additional and diverse revenue streams play in our community. That being said, I'm far from convinced on the safety of these vehicles on public routes, and I'm not convinced that the proposed routes are the best routes for Platteville. So that's why I'm not for or against it, but I think the routes, they definitely have to change. In terms of routes, while the proposed routes were generated to the best of the ATV-UTV group's abilities, it did not involve local transportation professionals. The transportation planner at the RPC was not engaged. Sam Owosu Obabio or Christina Fields at the university, they were not engaged. The DNR rep for our part of the state, after I talked with him, he was not engaged. A good process would have not only engaged these individuals from the beginning, but would have gone into the neighborhoods where the routes are proposed and engaged those living on those routes. Frankly, it seems to have been an afterthought from the group, one that only occurred after some vocal individuals expressed concern at the learning session. I focus on this because they are the side with the ask, so traditionally, they have the onus to do the engaging, not the other way around. But blame could certainly be laid at the city and the Common Council as well. Punting on this issue and then having folks fill out a survey is not really a good way to engage the community either. And the results are almost exactly what we can expect from this process and in this day and age. Two diametrically opposed groups, both unwilling to concede any ground. How do we rectify this? Well, we could mimic other cities as we saw in the PowerPoint. Although there are many cities that allow ATV-UTV routes through them on public roads, the picture painted at the last session a number of weeks ago was that these cities opened up all of their routes or had significant routes, and we should do the same. But if you look at the cities that are similar to ours, City of Monroe, one very small single route that goes through the city, and that's it. If you look at the City of Menominee, that's got Stout, an extremely limited route on the southern portion of the city. Dodgeville, as far as I could tell, no routes. Mineral Point, outskirts of the town. Reedsburg, two small loops on the outskirts and one proposed on the state highway. Baraboo, no routes. Spring Green, no routes. Lake Delton, no routes. Richland Center, a main route through the north and south, and a couple coming off on the side. What do all these have in common? One route through town, no routes in town, only through routes on the outskirts. Of course, I'm leaving off many of the communities that did open up routes, some that are nearby, to the entire town. But in terms of comparable cities, I've listed them, right? So how do we select the best route then? Well, we could hire an expensive consultant. We could hold more meetings, which probably would be a good idea. We could even get a senior design team at the University of Wisconsin to help pick the route. I worked with students and we picked and planned the bike routes for Monroe, all of them, and it was written up in the paper. So I don't know the best process, but this one's not appearing to work. We don't have a route that's a compromise, and we don't have one that looks like any of the cities that share similarities to ours. I think this session is a great start, right? And I think everyone here has what they believe is in the best for the community, and that's a good place to build off of, right? So I think going forward, we need to have more meetings, maybe a specific working group, bring in the interest groups, bring in the stakeholders, allow the people that are on the routes, and bring in transportation professionals, and let's come up with routes that everybody's happy with. and make sure we get it right the first time. If you look at what happened in a June meeting in Monroe, they have their route set. They have citizens starting to ask, well, I live a block off the route. Can't we just extend that route to my house now? You will have to deal with those questions all the time, right? So you got to set a precedent and you got to go forward with it. Thank you for your time. I plan to send a more formal letter that explains my thoughts on some of these maps to the Common Council.
Thank you. Michelle Bartels, I'd like to speak against and register against.
Michelle Bartels, 6685 Stumptown Road. And did you people receive both my copies that I left from the TH?
We got them.
Okay, okay. Because the second copy that I gave you, I thought it was kind of weird that they would mention Platteville, Wisconsin should not probably go ahead until they do further, like what he was just saying. So I guess my concern is I would rather have them around the outside of town, because I know how it is getting on and off from Main Street, just trying to cross with my parents. One day a week, we have a heck of a time without getting run over. And as far as parking. And then last weekend, just for the heck of it, I went out on Lafayette Grant scanner and I looked up how many accidents there were with UTVs, ATVs. I had one on Friday the 13th at midnight in Darlington where a guy hit a tree, but the weather was so bad, MedFlight couldn't come in, so I don't know what they did with him. The following morning at 11:40, we had 2 people ejected off from one in Darlington, and then Boscobel at 5:30 had EMS come in. Some male was found unconscious, and then on the 17th, another man killed in Iowa, and the 18th, we had a 11-year-old, the rolled one, in Boscobel. So as far as car wrecks that weekend, I saw 1. So my only concern is safety, and I think if we could find another route, like on the outside of town, not right down through the middle where everybody lives and traffic, and especially when the college comes, then it gets really crazy. And I'm afraid a lot of those college kids, they're gonna go, oh, now I can bring my ATV, UTV, bring it in, then we got all that havoc. So that's the only thing I got to say.
Thank you. Robert Digman, like to speak in favor?
Robert Digman, 1291 College Farm Road, Platteville. I'm on the PCA board and the chamber board, and we had a meeting with the PCA board, and we made a statement saying that these will not be on the trail. I sponsored the trail big time. I gave a lot of money for that, and I feel that the group should, in favor, help us with this too now, because we put money in the trail. I put money in the PCA, and I think it's time for people to help us get this through town too. If we need a different route, you know, she mentioned before there, around town, there's no routes around town that we can find at all. I mean, Platteville comes to a center, and all the roads are centered in Platteville. So if you want to come up with different routes that we should use, we're in favor of any of that. Just help us get through Platteville so we can go from Lafayette County through Platteville and get into Grand County. I talked to Reggie Gill at Lafayette County, and he said it would really help Lafayette County trails and the Cheese Trail if they had a way to get through from the Cheese Trail and get through Platteville. It would help their trail tremendously if they could say there's another way to get through besides just using the trail. Thank you.
Thank you. Margaret Ruff, speak against, register against.
Sure. I'm Margaret Roof. I live at 390 West Adams Street here in Platteville. And I want to thank everyone both for and against this whole proposal because a lot of you have some really well-informed statements to make, and I appreciate being here. I've been gone almost the whole summer, so I haven't had a whole lot of time to devote to looking into this. There were a few things I'll bring up that I was surprised to see or hear about during the slide presentation. First of all is the lack of turn signals on these vehicles. That's very surprising to me that a motorized vehicle wouldn't be required to have turn signals if cars are following them or coming toward them. I would think that that would be required. I don't know how these vehicles are made. I don't have a whole lot of experience with them. And in regard to what Sina was saying about the sunset clause, dawn to dusk, I think that perhaps should even be defined better, like making it from 8 to 5, where we know exactly where there is no wiggle room, there's no question about what times these vehicles would be allowed on the roads. I'm also very surprised that there are so many proposed routes going through town. I know there are businesses on multiple roads, but looks like a spider web to me. And I don't know that is necessary, especially thanking, I'm sorry I haven't met you before, but Austin, thank you for all the information. It was great research. I'm very surprised to see that this route would go past the fire station at all. That surprises me. And I do see that it goes, the proposed route has one section that goes on Business 151, and that is allowing you to get through town. I don't know if these vehicles are allowed to drive on country roads or not. So that's just me not being informed. I will tell you, yes, I do live on one of these routes. I live on West Adams Street, which most people know as Lancaster Street. And I have kind of a unique situation where I'm sandwiched between two college houses with at least 8 college students living in each of them, and then another one next door with at least 8 more. What Michelle had said about the worry of what's going to happen when college students, many of whom are farmers and are coming here to pursue their education, already have big giant trucks, trust me. Are they going to start wanting to bring their ATVs and UTVs to school, and are they going to be allowed to park in their parking areas, meaning they can drive off the street, which means they will be driving around my house all the time. Jack asked me if I would be opposed to this if I didn't live on the route. Yes, I still would be, because of everything that everyone who's opposed has said about safety issues. And my primary concern is increased traffic and increased noise. I do appreciate what everyone is hoping for, increasing the amount of business in Platteville, and it probably is a good way. I grew up in Darlington, so I know a lot of people who enjoy using ATVs and UTVs, and they worked really hard to get the cheese trail up and running, and it's used a lot. In my opinion, these vehicles are intended for use on trails, and maybe they can figure out, I know it's very expensive, but perhaps figure out a way to get a trail going through this area rather than asking a community like Platteville to allow this much traffic on this many route options. And I know I can't ask questions tonight, but thank you very much for letting me talk. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Kurt Timlin has registered in favor. Isaac Chanley, speak in favor and register in favor.
My name is Isaac Shanley. I live at 1030 Seymour Street. I'm one of the gentlemen that has actually brought this proposal to the city. A couple things just from what I've heard here today. We're talking about the 27 deaths. You know, we need to go a little bit farther than that. 16 of those were on the roads. The other ones were on private ground. Out of those 16, 3 were animal hits. None of those 16 involved another vehicle. They were a one vehicle incident, sir. As for the DNR reps not being engaged in this, I was talking with the DNR in our area here. It's not a common thing. It's not a common or an uncommon for the DNR reps to be involved. Some of the other cities have not involved the DNR as well. Talking about the Reedsburg routes, I've given you guys all the maps that you need there. Reedsburg actually does have more than one route, and I've shown you the maps there. They have one that goes all the way across the south side of town, and one that comes in on the northeast side of town. Same with Monroe has more than one route as well. I did not give you that map. As for the survey that was done, we went a little bit farther and actually on one of the routes up by Pitt Street, Ridge Avenue, and Sylvia Street, which I've sent this all to you. We actually went door to door and knocked on all the doors. We tried 3 attempts to all these. There are 67 houses from Lancaster Street over to Water Street. Through the 3 times we attempted, we were able to get a hold of 67.11 of these people or occupants of those homes. And out of them, 31 or 76% of those people were in favor of the petition and the routes as they were planned. And these are people that actually live on one of the routes. So I've spoken many times on this. I've given out tons of information, sent you stuff. I'm not sure if you have any more questions or so.
Just repeat 67 people.
Okay,
answered?
so from Lancaster Street to Water Street, there are 67 single-family residences. That would include Pitt Street, Sylvia Street, and also Ridge Avenue. There are also a few houses that also have a Seymour Street address, a Mountain View Court address, 5th Street, 4th Street, and 2nd Street that have frontage on the route, but their address is a different direction. So out of those 67 people, or 67 homes, through the 3 times that we've tried to, we were able to get a hold of 51 or 76% of those occupants. Out of those 76%, 31 or 76% of those people were in favor and have signed a petition in favor of the route as it is in the proposal.
You spoke to 51, 31 signed your petition.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
The questions?
Isaac, could you clarify?
Sure.
Do ATVs have turn signals?
Do not.
Do UTVs have turn signals?
Some do, some don't. And actually, some ATVs do, but not all of them.
Brake lights?
What's that?
Brake lights?
All of them.
All of them have brake lights?
Yes.
Working headlights?
Yes.
1 or 2?
Depends on the machine. UTV is typically 2 with a low and a bright, and a ATV is 1 with a low and a bright.
But they all have brake lights?
Yes.
I have a question. Because I've been stressing about, like, turn signals at night. How do you expect people to know if they're going right or left after, 8 p.m.? Like, what's the answer?
Try to use the hand signals.
Right, but like, how do you see those? Are they going to wear, like, glow-in-the-dark gloves?
Well, here's the thing. I live on the corner of Seamers and Pitt Street, right by Legion Field, and I can tell you vehicles and bicyclists, not all of them, use their turn signals as well.
Totally. No, I get bicycles and whatever, but they're not going 15 miles an
Well,
hour
I'm talking
unless
about
they're
cars.
really at a good clip.
Cars, trucks, same thing. I live right on the corner, so I see multiple ones.
Cars and trucks have blinkers.
Yeah, but they don't always get used.
Right, but they have them. There's an option.
Sure.
I'm just pushing the obvious.
Sure.
Like, if we're not going to talk about all the issues, then we shouldn't talk
Oh, that's
about
fine.
this. Is there any way we can make this part of the ordinance? Is there any way we can make this part of the issue? And, like, make it so, like, you can't drive here unless you have turn signals.
Have that option.
Is that a thing where we can adjust the ordinance? Okay. I think that's my biggest deterrent right now.
Sure.
Because, let's look at this at midnight. I
And
don't know.
one of the other things we're going at here
Or not
for
midnight, fine, 10 p.m.
Sure.
Whatever.
We were talking about towns that are similar to Platteville as well. So
Right. No, totally. And I
Yep.
hear you. I totally hear you. And I understand the comparison. And I
I'm sorry, I
understand.
just thought we were done. I was going to go to the next thing.
So I just want to solve that issue. That's it.
Any other questions?
Are you
Alright.
familiar with the warnings on these vehicles?
Yep.
Why should we disregard these warnings?
I'm not an attorney, so I'm really not sure what exactly the meanings of all of them are. And I mean, I've owned a machine since I was a little kid, and I rode them properly and not had any instances. I'm still here. I guess the state is starting to allow these to be on the street and the roads. Smaller municipalities should be able to as well allow them, which many are. We go to a city of Reedsburg, which we're trying to find towns or cities that are size that we are. We're looking at a city that's 26,500 some people and has university. They've done a trial period. They're getting ready to vote on the 7th to expand theirs to 26 streets. And that was brought to the council by council people.
You're not answering the question.
What's that?
It says on the manual that ATVs and UTVs are not meant to be on roads.
Yep. Well, like I said, I don't know if it's for liability purposes or, what exactly the purposes are.
So hypothetically, here we go. There's a pothole on the road, right? And the pothole is neglected by the city because, we're paying for trees to get clipped and fixing out lead lines and whatever, this and the other. And the UTV, ATV, hypothetically rolls the ATV and kills a kid. Who's liable? I mean, first off, it's tragic. Second off, who's liable?
I think, Sina, that might be a question that
Is this
we would ask our city attorney. I
Okay.
don't think that,
Is it-
Isaac
okay.
is obviously not an attorney, and so I would hesitate to have him try to respond to that.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I mean, it's a valid question, and we will have time for council members to speak to staff after we take all the comments, and if we want additional information, then that would be the time to ask our staff to investigate some of those questions.
All right, deal.
So Isaac, do you have any other comments?
Nope.
Okay. We do have one last person who has registered in favor, Nick Pease.
Nick Pease, 915 Eastman Street, Platteville, Wisconsin. I think the biggest issue here is, like the gentleman said, in the month of August, you're talking about 19,000 people on a trail. And you are saying to small business owners in town that basically we don't want 20,000 people here, which to me seems just insane. If you're going to tell me if you get 20,000 people in this town for any reason, that should be a reason for people to want to come. And I understand the safety issues, but if a large majority of the state is already opening these trails and they're setting precedents and they're changing laws at state level to run these things, I don't understand how we're dragging our feet, I guess. But like I said, I understand the issues of that safety concerns and everybody wants to be safe, but the state of Wisconsin, they don't require motorcyclists to wear helmets.
Which is also stupid.
But it's a law. I mean, so until we start policing absolutely every motor vehicle for everything, I don't think it's our job as a municipality to say this has to be done in this way or this has to be done in this way. The state has already set the precedent that they're obviously okay to be driven on roads. They're okay to be used in these situations. Otherwise, they wouldn't be allowing it.
I respect so hard what you're saying, but why shouldn't we hold ourselves to a higher standard?
I agree, but we're not telling motorcyclists that they can't come to town without a helmet on.
I think we should. But like if we can't create a higher standard somewhere, like
no, and
you know what I mean? Like what that's like a moral question. I know, it's like a back and forth thing. I hear you and I hear like the whole business thing and all that stuff.
And I agree with you on morality, like
because sunglasses won't prevent your brains from smashing into the ground.
I mean, the thing is are we a nanny state that we hold everybody's hands to do everything?
That's the question, right?
Right. I mean,
yeah,
and
totally.
And if the state, I mean, if we were doing something completely off the wall and nobody had done this before and this was an issue, I would absolutely go, well, this is crazy. We're doing something that, this can't be done. But we're talking about, you see people that go up north on their snowmobiles every year from, October to February. And there are hundreds of businesses up there that are thriving through the winter when they get snow, or these ATV, UTV trails that they get in the spring and fall that are basically supporting small communities. And we're talking about 19,000 people that are already on a trail that want to probably stay here if they're coming from Monroe and then Prairie the next day. I mean, we're talking about a significant amount of people coming to the city of Platteville. I mean, to me, that's what this boils down to. Safety is safety, and the routes should be worked accordingly, and everybody should be, happy with that. But on the same level, how do we turn away business to the town of Platteville? I guess that's all I had to say about anything. But if anybody has any questions, I'd.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And again, I would ask the person who filled it out, ATV, UTV routes, would like to speak against, but there is no name. So if there was someone here who didn't remember to put their name, now's a chance to come up and speak. Okay, we'll just keep it with the rest of them. All right, thank you all for your comments. We have a lot to consider. And the proposal would be that we would take this question up at the August 14th meeting. Right now, that's what we have posted for people's information. So unless that changes between now and then, and certainly we would let everyone know that, but I think we've collected a lot of good information. I'd like to thank everybody who came tonight. I'd like to thank all the people who spoke at the other two meetings and also who filled out the surveys online, because we have had a lot of good information. This is an opportunity for the council members to ask staff if there is more information on anything at all that they would like to have gathered for the next 2 weeks. Now would be the time to please let staff know that so that we can give them time to get those answers.
If I could just interject, I know that we did involve the city attorney, obviously, in the drafting of this ordinance, and I know I specifically, on behalf of one of our council members, asked the city attorney for his input as well with respect to any particular liability concerns. And I had forwarded that information on to the council. He will be at, if this proceeds as proposed, he will be at the August meeting and can answer any questions that you have directly, although he can't answer a hypothetical question. Generally, anyone can sue the city. The question is, what is the level of risk that a particular action poses? And he didn't have any particular concerns about the level of risk that this ordinance posed.
Thank you for that. Questions, anyone? Comments?
I have a comment or two. One of the comments that I have is as to time of year. We have winter parking regulations that span November 15th to April 1. And I believe that if we adopt an ordinance that allows ATV, UTV usage, our ordinance should match in terms of no operation in the winter. So no operation of ATVs on the roads from November 15th to April 1st, rather than defining another new set of winter time period. So that's one chance. I think right now it's, I was looking on my packet. I thought I had it somewhere and then I lost it. That's what happens when you can't use your computer. Right now it's March 16th to November 30th. So I would propose that would be changed to April 1st to November 15th. Operation between those dates rather than the dates. I also have a concern about the 11 p.m. time, as many people have mentioned. That's one reason I was talking about the taillights, the brake lights, and so I don't think 6 a.m. is a bad time. I think by 6 a.m. between April 1st and November 15th, it's probably light. I would need to do a little research in terms of what happens in October and November with nighttime and how that might, how we might modify that time at the end. I share some concern about the late hour. Even if people came to town to eat, and we've been told that the businesses that would perhaps stand against the most are eating establishments, because we've been told that people don't come to town to drink and drive.
We don't do
So,
that when we're on ATVs.
so in that regard, I think there's probably not a lot of restaurants that serve much after 9, so that people should be done by 10. So I think that we could probably move the ending time up some. I would also like to see a list, what happens if people drive off routes and what kind of things occur. I'm particularly bothered not only by ATVs and UTVs, but by snowmobiles and others, that drunk driving convictions do not go against the driver's license. As someone said to me, you could come to town and get drunk every night and pay $232 and come the next night and get drunk and pay $232. And you could do it over and over and over again, and it doesn't go against your driver's license. It doesn't do anything. That's not something that we have any control over, because that's specified in state statute. I believe that's problematic. I believe that's something council members should take up with legislators, because I believe that the statistics show that many of the accidents involve just that. And by not having a penalty that goes against your license, I don't think it, I think that's problematic. I don't think that helps people to understand that it's not a good idea to be drinking and driving. So that's not something we have control over, but those couple of things, for sure.
Any other comments or questions from council members?
I just have a question for Isaac. You were talking about the cheese trail, if that's what it's called. Who did?
Isaac, could you come up to the
Well, somebody did.
cheese trail?
Mr.
I know that
Digman,
Kathy
did you talk about it?
Kathy, did you mention the cheese trail as well, perhaps?
Somebody did. Anyway,
Well, Isaac can try to answer.
thank you for coming up. My question is, okay, the cheese trail comes from Monroe to Darlington? Belmont. Okay, so so there's no way to cross over to toward the river. There's no way to connect and do anything along the river then?
Well, the
Is that
cheese
the
trail
problem?
is only a portion of it. So now that was the original start of all this in Southwest Wisconsin, was a cheese trail. So now do you not only have that, the townships that are along that and down by Monroe, Darlington, Belmont have also opened up roads as well. So the question, are you talking about getting to Mississippi? Is that what you're looking
Right.
at?
Well, the township, we met informally with the township board, and they said, Platteville Township, that they thought the only way to cross 151 would be at Dickeyville.
As of right now, as far as I know, you can cross Dickeyville, because actually that crossing is still within the village of Dickeyville. And you can cross in Keeler underneath the overpass, and you can cross, I'm not exactly sure what the road is. There's one more road south of Keeler that you can cross as well. Cross the highway, I'm sorry.
You can't cross at West Mound.
At West Mound.
That goes in, there's an underpass. It would go under the road.
As of right now, there's not, but that is another thing that, when Lafayette County, or if the city of Platteville opens theirs, Lafayette County doesn't want to expand and put more money into signs if it's going to be going to an area that they just have to turn around and come back.
Lafayette County.
Correct. Well, a lot of townships. Platteville Township's one of them, so.
That's why well, I know Cuba City is starting to put a task force together for this very reason, just because we're starting to look at it.
Well, Cuba City already has a route through their city.
So I'm wondering if
So-
they're redoing or restudying, I don't know.
They're looking to expand it. Since we met the last time,
expand.
Smelser Township has opened up the entire township. The city of Lancaster has went from about 4 routes in town, has went to the entire city of Lancaster is open now. And that happened last Monday, their vote. What's up? Or Lima, I'm sorry, Lima Township is what I meant to say. Lima Township was completely open now, which is north of us.
Thank you.
But it's actually to the river. You'd be going into Illinois, so I don't know anything down there. So.
Right. Thank you. Any other questions from council members?
I have a
Or
question,
Yep.
and this is that the ordinance written needs to be redone. And my question is, how is this going to come about? Is the staff going to give us a redo of the ordinance, and then we take a look at it on 2 weeks before the whatever date is picked, as far as working on a different ordinance? We're improving the ordinance. There are a number of things that have been brought up tonight, and they pertain in part to the ordinance.
So, Council.
So how is this going to be
Well,
accomplished?
I think the staff would like to know your opinion as to what changes you would like to see. I think that's what staff is looking for tonight, is comments from the council to.
Okay, I'll give a list to the staff.
Is that how
Sure.
you want to approach then, is we can just send a list?
Yeah, I would say, does that work all right with staff, do you think?
Well, I'd be curious if there's any consensus with respect to any changes you're seeking. It's not going to be necessarily helpful for us as staff if everybody comes up with a separate list of timeframes or times a day. We have no way of consolidating that, so it'd be better if there's some level of consensus as to what changes you'd like us to bring back.
So does this mean a work session,
This is a work session.
a future work session on the ordinance?
It's not the plan.
That's your decision. I mean, that is certainly, this is a work session as well.
That would be one approach, to have one more work session just for the council to share our ideas, unless there aren't a lot of other questions.
I don't oppose that idea. I think that might be, I know that the ATV pros are wanting to get this pushed through, but I think that there's options. I think that we can find a happy medium where it pisses everybody off. I will make both of your sides really mad, okay? I think that's the solution. And I think the council should completely wipe out the ordinance and draw something new up. And I think we should have another work session with just the council. It could be an open work session, but council-based and whatever, and where we can sit and negotiate and figure it out. And then propose a new ordinance and bring it to the public and get their feedback and then try again. Because I don't think this is something that we should push through. I think that there's a lot of really good opinions on both sides. A lot of people have thought through things, and it makes a lot of sense both ways, because I've been researching it, and I know more about ATVs than I've ever known in my entire freaking life. There's a solution here, and I don't think the solution should be made tonight. I think we should take everybody and what they're saying, like I said, and make everybody mad at us. So that's what I think we should do. I
Yeah,
think
we are
should-
not making a decision tonight. There's
Totally,
no-
but I think we should have another work session and propose a new ordinance.
I think that within reason, I mean, the ordinance has some state law in it that we have to abide by.
I mean,
Okay, I'm not sure I understand that. I'm sorry.
I guess that, first of all, this ordinance has been drafted by our attorney, so he's put the legalese in it. So I've talked about two things that I would propose to have changed in this ordinance. One is the timing, instead of December 1st to whatever it was. In 3817, parent 7, letter G, it says the city of Platteville routes will be closed from December 1 to March 15. My proposal would be that we would be closed from November 15th to April 1st. That matches our winter parking regulations. So it just matches when anybody comes to town, winter parking regulations, winter ATV, whatever, it just matches. So I think I would propose that. In that same section, there's the times that they'll be closed. Right now it says from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. So to me, I don't need to go back and have this whole thing rewritten. I think we need to read through it, and if you have suggestions as to what might be changed or altered, you should say that.
So I would like to pursue that conversation, the dates, and then the other two things that I pulled out were blinkers and the specific streets, the route. If there's any other options that city staff has considered, a bare bones one path or not, Have you discussed the absolute perimeter of the city? I guess we'd just like to hear why certain options have not been pursued. And then regarding the dates, I just would like to know why those dates were chosen before making the decision to change them.
And again, these routes were not proposed by staff.
But in consultation with staff, correct? Howard, you've weighed in on these routes a bit, right? You've at least.
We've had discussions with the proponents and they're looking at connections to the business community that they've been talking about, and they've also been looking at connections to and through the city to get to existing routes that are in the county and township.
I guess I'd like to add on to that. So staff has not taken with the exception of saying that, you know, it's feasible to have a ATV, UTV route on this street. We have not taken a position on routes, specifically because during the course of our work together, there hadn't been any public engagement up to that point. We really felt that the council needed to decide which routes would make the most sense. There are pros and cons. I mean, some people, there's a pro and con to having them go straight through town with, you know, the bulk of traffic. There are pros and cons to skirting them around on the outside. And we do not have a position as to what makes the most sense, just that they could be allowed on these streets. We don't see any major impediments to it.
I feel like as a group, we each need to be able to walk away justifying the different streets on the route in some sense. If it's approved, we've thought about each of the streets in some sort of serious consultation with Howard and the group. I feel like you hear specific requests, I guess, that it's hard to know to vote for the whole package without the finer details of why.
So do you think a work session just for the council would be helpful?
I would appreciate that.
Other members?
Probably a good idea just to scrap it and start over, but it's not our responsibility to help that along the way. More or less, this proposal is asking us to change a law with no evidence as why it's a bad law. Sorry. We're being asked to recognize that these off-road vehicles are suddenly A-okay for the road, but they're not. And so we have to change that, then be okay with them being not safe. And then, of course, to still let them drive around our cities, then we have to say, okay, they need a driver's license because that has to be added. It wasn't. They have to be at least 16, okay? They have to have liability insurance. We keep on adding on. There's too many bad points of this whole proposal in the first place. It was poorly put together. We've spent way too much time on it already. We can do a work session. We can talk about more. But my idea is that it's already a bad proposal.
You say scrap and start over, but what would be included in a start over if ATVs are not allowed on roads?
Well, Austin had mentioned how getting people actually who know about transportation and getting those experts involved in the process.
But that wouldn't change manufacturer recommendations.
Correct, it wouldn't. I still would be against it. They're not built for the roads.
Well, just not to be argumentative, but
Go ahead.
as far as wasting time, you don't really want us to scrap and start over because you don't want to start over in that sense.
No, this is still community input, you know, as far as everyone, just because I'm just one person on 7, okay? But as far as the manufacturer recommendations, I mean, they put it on every single one. Do not use on public roads. Never. Why do we say, oh, that's A-okay because everyone else is doing it? Not everyone else is doing it. We don't have to do it.
Can I throw out an argument that's gonna be really controversial and to make everybody really mad at me because I'm on a roll? There's a white privilege behind it that nobody's talking about. Like, let's bring up race as we sit in here with a room full of white people. I know. But who's it benefiting and who is it not? How many black people do you see driving ATVs? Give me a number. So I think, I know, Isaac, I know you don't like it. I'm sorry. Why?
Okay.
Why am I out of line?
Well, no, I think we don't want to go down a road that is going to not probably resolve anything this evening. My question really to the council is, we can bring this back on the 14th. I mean, we have had 1, 2, 3, 4 meetings, is that right? Trying to remember. There was the first meeting, and then there was something at the high school, and then we discussed it tonight, so that's 3. You know, we either move this forward or we don't move it forward, I guess. We're asking all these people to keep coming to meetings, and ultimately, the council is going to have to decide whether we move it forward and make a decision one way or another, or we don't. Do you want to have one more discussion on it as a council, or would you prefer to just have the meeting on the 14th and have a vote?
I've suggested my changes. I can also say that I would like to see, I really don't see the need to have 3 routes through the middle of town. I have been opposed since the beginning of going down Main Street, and I'm still opposed to going down Main Street. I just don't see going down Main Street. I don't think that's a good idea. And that's my personal opinion. It could be anybody else's personal opinion. I would pick one of those routes, Furnace or Pine. I would probably prefer to pick Furnace because it's the least, well, Pine is a state highway. So, you know, I would suggest we find a route through town, not a spider web of routes, just like other communities have found, that we see if we can adopt that perhaps we put a sunset clause on it and try it for, I don't know, a year, 2 years, see how that works. I've talked to a lot of people in the district where I live. The range of opinion is broad, from they're not supposed to be on a public highway, I don't even know why you'd consider it, to everybody else is putting them on a public highway. That's what's happening. So, I mean, the range is very broad. Some people are saying, you know, I talk to people in other communities, when they open all the roads in town, it seems to be less of a problem than when they designate roads or routes. Because if you want to talk about everybody sharing equally, then everybody shares equally, because anybody can go anywhere. So it could be on my road, it could be on your road. So, you know, but I think, again, I'd limit the winter hours. I'd pull back the ending time to at least 10, and maybe even think about a little bit earlier because of the November 15th deadline. And then I'd be willing to even take a map and suggest a route. And I'd even be willing to go to the RPC planner and ask if they think that's a good route or not. And I know that, so I don't see scrapping this whole thing. Scrapping this whole thing and starting over is not something that I see is, it will move us very far, very fast.
I would agree with that. I think we've had too much discussion and too much public input to just say now that we're going to just not consider all that, or ask everyone to, you know, go through this again. So, Ken, do you have some questions right now on the ordinance that you would like to ask?
A number of things been brought up, but I'm also looking at Amy Seaboth Wilson's article, and when you look at her attachment, there's a lot of good information there as far as the safety of ATVs, and also this letter from Charles A. Jennison, I believe that's pronunciation, Iowa, He has good information there, and these sources lead me to believe that these vehicles are not meant to be on the road with other vehicles that we drive. And I cannot, at the present time, this ordinance is not well enough written. You talk about, we've discussed this a number of times, we're in a learning stage, and we didn't know enough to begin with to put things out. And this should have been studied more, very frankly. And that's what we're finding now. The information is coming out, and there are better ways to do this. So right now, I cannot support this.
So you don't have specific questions on the ordinance itself?
Yes, I'll give them to the city manager. I'll give them to you.
Okay, and that would be shared with the council, okay. Barb?
Many have been brought up already tonight.
Okay,
The timing,
the timing,
directional lights.
insurance, okay. So
And
that,
then there are other questions like, how can you allow somebody that's 12 years old drive one of these vehicles?
Ordinance would not allow that, though. They would have to have their driver's license.
With your town.
this ordinance would be for 16 and above. 12-year-olds would not be allowed to drive on the city streets with the current proposed ordinance. That would be not permitted. Anybody else have anything else to say? I think that, given all the comments, I personally don't think a work session probably is going to add a lot to what will happen, but if people still want a work session, we can do one. But it would have to be in the next couple of weeks. If you want time to think about it, let me know. We can certainly let staff know, but right now, if you have any other comments.
Just that I really encourage council members to read the proposed ordinance and to come up with where they see opportunity for input, compromise, or if you want to call it negotiation. I've seen all the, I've been an ATV, UTV operator since 1971. I've had one. They aren't new to me. Have I operated it on the road? No. Would I probably consider it? No. But that's my personal preference, I guess. Other people are using road trails. I think our population deserves our looking at this and making a decision.
All right, unless anybody else has any other comments, we are completing our work session, and the next item would be to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and we'll vote.
Klein?
Yes.
Francis?
Yes?
Stockhausen?
Yes.
Killian?
Yes.
Nichols?
Yes.
Sharp?
Yes.
Doss?
Yes.
Motion carries.